Eleanor, or Ely, as everyone calls her, is a 34-year-old woman with a sensitive and optimistic spirit. She has always dreamed of starting a family. She grew up in a simple childhood in a small neighborhood on the outskirts of Austin, Texas. Ely is the kind of person who believes in the small joys of everyday life, always kind and with a generous heart. She works as a graphic designer at a local company, where she has gained friends and respect for her talent and friendliness. On the other hand, we have Alexander, or Alex, a 39-year-old man who grew up in a very strict environment with few displays of affection. He is a financial manager at an investment firm, and his life is marked by the constant search for stability. Meticulous and reserved, Alex has never been one to openly show his feelings. Even though he is in love with Ely, he maintains a serious demeanor, preferring security and routine over great adventures. However, with her by his side, Alex began to experience happiness and believe in building a future with someone. When they got married, Alex and Ely shared the dream of having children. However, after 8 years together, their attempts to get pregnant failed, generating a silent pain that they both carried. The dream seemed increasingly distant, and Ely began to resign herself to the idea that perhaps motherhood was not part of her destiny. Alex, on the other hand, also felt the weight of frustration, but avoided talking about it, preferring silence. Everything changed one spring morning. Ely began to feel dizzy and nauseous, symptoms that, at first, she attributed to fatigue from work. However, when she saw that the symptoms persisted, she decided to take a pregnancy test, with almost no hope of a positive result. But, to her surprise, the test indicated that she was pregnant. Ely felt an explosion of emotions, a mixture of happiness and disbelief. With tears in her eyes, she called Alex to tell him the news. When Ely shares the results with Alex, he is stunned. At first, surprise robs him of words, but soon euphoria takes over. They hug each other, laughing and crying at the same time, letting the joy spread throughout the house. At that moment, Alex feels the emptiness he had silently carried for years filled. For the first time, he believes that everything he had built and protected with such care is about to take on even greater meaning. However, despite the initial happiness, a seed of uncertainty begins to germinate in Alex. He does not say anything to Ely, but as the pregnancy progresses, he notices an uncomfortable feeling of anxiety that he cannot explain. He knows that his life will change drastically and that the birth of a child will bring challenges. These doubts become even stronger when Ely renews her friendship with Thomas, a longtime friend who now works at the same company as her. Thomas has always been close to Ely, but for Alex, this friendship becomes a source of insecurity. In silence, Alex finds himself consumed by feelings he never imagined having. While celebrating the arrival of the baby, she feels a twinge of jealousy and begins to question Ely's closeness to Thomas, a friend who, in Alex's eyes, seems to have a hidden interest. Ely doesn't notice the changes in Alex's behavior, believing that everything is in perfect harmony. Little does she know that these small doubts and internal fears of Alex's will be the trigger for a sequence of events that will shake up both of their lives. As the months of pregnancy progress, Alex's happiness begins to give way to insecurities that he never imagined he would face. At first, they are just small annoyances that he tries to ignore, but soon these doubts become a constant presence, disturbing his peace. He observes Ely with a closer look, capturing details that would never have caught his attention before. Every smile and conversation she has with Thomas, her former friend and co-worker, now seems to have a different weight, something that he, no matter how hard he tries, cannot shake off. Thomas is a frequent presence in Ely's life, especially now that they are working together. The two have known each other since college and have always shared a sincere friendship. He is cheerful, communicative, and very helpful, qualities that Ely values and that make her feel comfortable around him. For Alex, however, this closeness is interpreted differently. He begins to think that, by being more reserved and less involved in Ely's social circle, he may have distanced himself from her emotionally, creating a space that Thomas is filling. These insecurities increase when Alex, by chance, sees messages exchanged between Ely and Thomas on her phone. The conversation, although completely innocent, reinforces the fears that were already tormenting him. In one of the messages, Thomas asks about how Ely is dealing with the pregnancy and mentions that he is excited to see her entering this new phase of life. For Alex, the message seems to have an excessively intimate tone, arousing a jealousy that he tries to hide. Silently, he begins to entertain the idea that Thomas could have intentions beyond friendship. Alex's behavior begins to change noticeably. He becomes colder and more distant, even though he tries to hide his emotions. Ely, at first, doesn't notice the change, as she is absorbed in preparing for the baby's arrival. She interprets Alex's behavior as a reflection of the natural anxiety of someone who is about to become a parent. For her, these signs of discomfort are normal, and her mind is completely focused on the happiness of the pregnancy. One evening, while Ely and Alex are having dinner at a restaurant, Thomas passes by casually and comes to the table to greet them. He makes a point of congratulating the couple on their pregnancy and talks enthusiastically about the future, showing genuine affection for Ely. Alex, uncomfortable, just watches in silence, feeling that he is no longer in control of the situation. The joy of Thomas talking about Ely's pregnancy, her naturalness in responding with affection, and the discomfort he feels there, all contribute to increasing the suspicions that consume him. When he returns home, Alex can no longer contain his doubts. He spends the night awake, thinking about the conversations he witnessed, the messages he read, and the way Ely always seems radiant when she talks about Thomas. In his mind, the interactions between them take on contours that feed his jealousy, leading him to believe that perhaps something is going on between his wife and his friend. Ely, unaware of Alex's insecurities, continues to plan enthusiastically for the baby's arrival, while their marriage begins to face a silent tension that threatens to intensify. The baby's arrival is awaited with a mixture of anxiety and excitement. After months of preparation, the last days before the birth are marked by an intensity of feelings, especially for Ely, who is more radiant than ever. Alex, however, continues to fight against the doubts and jealousy that have silently grown over the months. He tries to hide his insecurities and convince himself that it was all just an exaggeration on his part, but the proximity of the birth rekindles his fears. When Ely goes into labor, Alex accompanies her to the hospital. Despite the uncertainties that torment him, he is by her side, holding her hand, and the emotion of the moment almost makes him forget his suspicions. In the delivery room, the tension is intense, but the atmosphere changes to joy as soon as the baby's cry echoes through the room. Alex feels a mix of relief and emotion, trying to prepare himself for the moment of seeing his son's face for the first time. However, when he looks at the baby, Alex feels a shock run through his body. The newborn has physical features that he did not expect, characteristics that make him question again everything he has experienced with Ely in the last few months. His mind is filled with doubts, and, in a few seconds, all the fears and suspicions that he tried to control come to the surface in an overwhelming way. He looks at Ely, who smiles excitedly with the baby in her arms, without realizing the conflict that consumes Alex. With his heart racing and his mind filled with assumptions, Alex takes a step back, as if trying to distance himself from the situation. Ely, not understanding his reaction, extends her hand, but he avoids contact, the pain and shock clearly visible on his face. Without giving any explanation, Alex leaves the delivery room abruptly, surprising everyone around him. Ely watches him leave, not understanding what is happening and still under the effect of the emotion of the birth. In the hospital corridor, Alex feels anger and pain dominate his thoughts. He concludes, without seeking any confirmation, that he has been betrayed. For him, the baby's unexpected physical features are proof that his suspicions were correct. Without considering any logical explanation or seeking dialogue, Alex decides, in an impulsive act, that he will not return to that room. His head is filled with the idea that everything was a lie, and he cannot face Ely or the baby. Ely, unable to understand the reason for Alex's behavior, is devastated. The following hours are marked by growing anguish as she tries to assimilate what has happened. Her happiness at the birth of her son is mixed with despair over her husband's reaction. She calls him repeatedly, but Alex does not answer. Little by little, Ely begins to realize that his abandonment is real, but she does not understand why. With his heart torn apart and his mind dominated by a mixture of pain and fury, Alex makes a drastic decision. Still confused and deeply shaken by the sight of the baby, he gets in his car and drives aimlessly for hours. His mind is a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts, but for him, each clue seems to point to the same outcome. Ely has betrayed him. Alex feels an anger he cannot contain and concludes that the only solution is to cut all ties with her and the baby, refusing to face what he sees as a devastating betrayal. On impulse, Alex decides to leave the city and isolate himself, without even giving Ely an explanation. For him, facing a conversation or seeking an excuse seems unbearable. He convinces himself that Ely doesn't deserve any explanation and that the only way to avoid the pain is to disappear. So he blocks her number on his phone and on all social media, completely disconnecting himself. The decision is not rational. It is an instinctive reaction of someone who wants to protect themselves, even at the cost of the suffering of others. As Alex moves away, Ely faces the despair of being left alone at the most important moment of her life. The hospital, which should be a place of happiness and togetherness, becomes the stage for an anguish that she cannot understand. She waits anxiously, believing that Alex will return at any moment, but with each passing minute, the reality of abandonment becomes clearer. Ely tries to contact him in every way, but her messages and calls go silent. Without any emotional support from Alex, Ely must recover from the birth and, at the same time, process the pain of having been abandoned without explanation. Friends and family try to support her, but nothing seems to fill the emptiness and helplessness she feels. Ely spends sleepless nights, remembering every detail of the relationship, looking for a reason for the abandonment, but nothing makes sense. She wonders what she did wrong, trying to find answers where there is only silence. At the same time, Alex isolates himself in another city, keeping himself away from everything that reminds him of his old life. He cuts off contact with friends and avoids places and people that could bring him back to the reality he left behind. In his mind, he feels that protecting himself in this way is the only way out, even though every day the remorse grows. However, pride and hurt prevent him from going back. Months pass, and while Ely adjusts, forcefully, to life as a single mother, Alex tries to deal with the weight of her decision. He is convinced that he has been betrayed, but something inside him, a nagging doubt, silently torments him. As much as he wants to move on, the memory of Ely and the baby haunts him, raising questions that he refuses to face. The first few months after Alex's abandonment are devastating for Ely. The reality of being abandoned at the time when she needed support the most feels like a never-ending nightmare. She can barely sleep, and her emotional health plummets as she tries to cope with the demands of a newborn on her own. Ely feels like her life has been turned upside down. Her dreams of a happy family have been brutally ripped away, leaving her feeling like she is navigating an unknown darkness. Determined not to let abandonment destroy her, Ely begins to rebuild her life little by little. At first, it is difficult to even leave home, but she knows she needs to be strong for her son, little Noah. The strength she finds in her love for her baby becomes the starting point for her recovery. Ely begins to count on the support of friends, like Thomas, who, despite also being shaken by what happened, is there for her in every difficult moment. He helps her maintain hope and move forward, offering his friendship in a supportive and respectful way. As the months go by, Ely realizes that, as much as Alex's abandonment still hurts her, she cannot continue living because of his absence. To move forward, she decides to resume some projects she had put aside, returning to work and finding strength in her independence. Ely discovers that she is more resilient than she imagined. Each day by Noah's side strengthens her determination to build a stable life for them, even if she has to do so without the support of the boy's father. Ely still has doubts and questions that echo in her mind, but she chooses to focus on the present, on her son and her daily achievements. With the support of friends and family, Ely becomes an even stronger woman. She begins to realize that, despite everything, she has a new opportunity to create a safe and loving environment for Noah. At the same time, news about Noah's birth and Alex's abandonment begins to circulate discreetly among the couple's acquaintances. Friends who witness Ely's daily struggle become increasingly outraged by Alex's attitude. Still, Ely avoids talking about the subject, feeling that she needs to overcome this situation without depending on the opinions or judgments of others. As the months go by, Ely's smile shines again, and the bond between her and Noah grows stronger. She learns to appreciate each small victory and becomes an inspiration to other mothers who face similar challenges. Motherhood, once seen as a daunting responsibility, is now a source of happiness and courage. Ely finds in Noah the reason to keep going, realizing that she is capable of creating a new life and building a future full of possibilities. After months of isolation and remorse, Alex decides to return to the city to resolve pending issues related to a family inheritance. He believes he can go unnoticed, dealing with matters quickly, but the city seems full of memories and, at every corner, he is reminded of the life he left behind. In a casual meeting with an old mutual friend, Alex overhears a comment about Ely's baby. The friend, unaware of the conflicts between the couple, mentions that Ely is proving to be an incredible mother and that little Noah looks just like his father. The friend's words make Alex's heart beat faster. He realizes, at that moment, how much he misses Ely and the son he never knew. Overcome by a curiosity that borders on despair, Alex begins to question his choices. Was it unfair to abandon them? He remembers the look on Ely's face on the day of his birth and begins to wonder if his reaction was hasty and impulsive. Doubt torments him, and he feels an intense need to know the truth. Driven by the desire to finally understand what happened, Alex decides to look for Ely. The reunion is tense and painful. Ely is surprised to see him, and the expression of suffering and exhaustion on her face makes it clear how much she has suffered since being abandoned. She looks at him with a mixture of pain and resistance, determined not to let herself be shaken. Alex, nervous and not knowing where to start, tries to justify himself, but Ely interrupts him, demanding an explanation. The calm that had always been characteristic of her now gives way to an intensity he had never seen before. Alex then exposes his doubts and the reason why he abandoned her. He confesses that, when he saw the baby, he thought it wasn't his son, that all the happiness he believed he had built was undone in seconds by the suspicion of betrayal. Ely, overcome by deep indignation, listens to his words in disbelief. How could he have judged her and abandoned her without even questioning her, without seeking a sincere conversation? Alex's lack of trust, which made her go through so much pain, now hurts her even more. Ely, with her pride wounded and anger exploding in every word, confronts Alex about what he has done, and the cruelty of her decision hits him hard. She challenges him to look at Noah, asking if he doesn't see his own reflection in the boy. Alex, embarrassed and remorseful, feels small in the face of the magnitude of the mistake he has made. Ely, determined, makes it clear that if he wants to be a part of Noah's life, he will have to face the consequences of his actions and deal with what he has caused. With no other options and feeling shame mixed with regret, Alex realizes that he will have to do more than just apologize. For Ely, his words are no longer enough. He will have to prove, with actions, that he deserves to regain her trust. The unspoken truths and the weight of the past now push him into a deep dilemma. He finally realizes that, in order to make amends for what he has done, he will have to face his own insecurities and prove that he can be worthy of her forgiveness. After the intense reunion, Ely decides that the only way to clear up all of Alex's doubts is to take a DNA test. For her, this is the only way to put an end to the suspicions that Alex still seems to harbor. Although hurt and outraged, Ely believes that this definitive proof will at least clarify the truth and give her and Noah a chance to move forward, whether with or without Alex's presence in their lives. On the day of the test, the atmosphere is heavy, full of silent tension. Ely maintains a hard and determined expression, while Alex seems visibly shaken. Every second spent with Ely and Noah makes him reflect on the mistake he made, and the weight of regret begins to suffocate him. He tries to say something, but Ely cuts him off, reminding him that his actions have had serious consequences and that there is no more room for empty explanations. The only words she will accept are those that come from the test results, which will confirm, once and for all, the truth. The following days are filled with waiting and anxiety. Ely, though confident that the results will prove the obvious, can't help but feel a pang of sadness when she thinks about what this situation represents. Alex's complete lack of trust and the pain he has caused by his unfounded suspicions. She feels that, even with the results in hand, their relationship may have been irreparably damaged. Alex, on the other hand, is going through a true emotional roller coaster. He questions himself about every impulsive decision, every time he failed to trust Ely, and every moment he allowed jealousy and insecurity to take over. The doubt he now carries is no longer about Noah's paternity, but about his own ability to be worthy of the trust and love he so desperately desires to regain. He realizes that, regardless of the outcome, he will have to deal with the consequences of his selfish and destructive behavior. Finally, the day of the results arrives. Ely receives the envelope at the doctor's office and asks Alex to meet her in a park, where they can have more privacy. As she opens the document, the words confirm what she has always known: Alex is Noah's father. Ely looks at him, and the silence between them is thick and charged. Alex feels the impact of the confirmation like a blow. The truth he had refused to see is now there, clear and indisputable. He tries to speak, to apologize, but words seem insufficient. In a firm voice, Ely explains that this evidence is not an excuse for him to resume his role as a father. She makes it clear that, for her, trust is not something that can be restored with a piece of paper, and that he will have to show, with actions, that he is truly committed to making amends for what he did. Ely sets clear limits, and Alex understands that, in order to earn a place in her and Noah's lives, he will need to regain her trust day after day, step by step. Even after the DNA test is confirmed, Alex is still trying to understand why his son has physical characteristics that he did not expect. This detail, although now irrelevant to paternity, continues to intrigue him. Ely, determined to show how hasty he was in his judgment, suggests a visit to his maternal grandparents' house, where several photos and family stories could offer some answers. They make the visit together, and Alex feels out of place and nervous. When looking at old photos and talking to Ely's grandmother, Alex discovers something he didn't know. Ely's great-grandfather was from a different lineage, with very striking physical features that, according to his grandmother, skipped generations. Ely had always heard these stories, but never paid much attention to them. Now, however, this detail seems essential to answer the suspicions that Alex kept secret. When he sees the photos of his great-grandfather and observes the similarities with Noah, Alex is overcome by a deep feeling of shame and remorse. He realizes that his suspicions were not only unfounded, but based on prejudices and insecurities that he had never properly faced. This revelation forces him to face the gravity of his actions and to reflect on how much he failed to know and trust Ely. Ely watches Alex in silence, realizing the weight that the truth brings to him. She feels a mixture of relief and sadness, because, even with all the evidence, the trust between them has been irreparably shaken. While it satisfies a part of her to see Alex confronted with the truth, she realizes that this discovery does not eliminate the pain of abandonment and the suspicions he fueled. When they leave his grandparents' house, the silence between them is full of meaning. Alex tries to apologize once more, but Ely interrupts him, making it clear that words will not make up for what happened. She challenges him to look inside himself and change for real if he really wants to be a part of Noah's life. Alex, shaken and overcome by a self-awareness he had never experienced before, begins to realize that winning back Ely and Noah will require much more than he imagined. He understands that this family truth has revealed not only the origin of Noah's physical features, but also how fragile his confidence was and how much he still has to work to be a worthy father and husband. Guilt and regret consume him, but along with them comes a decision. He wants to fight to regain Ely's trust and have a place in Noah's life. Alex looks for Ely a few days later, asking for a private conversation. He finds her in a cafe, where she greets him with a serious and distant expression. He feels the weight of Ely's emotions and realizes that winning her back will be a difficult road. With a shaky voice, Alex apologizes deeply, acknowledging how unfair and selfish he was. He admits that his insecurity blinded him and that he acted impulsively and cowardly, hurting the person he loved most. Ely listens to his words without showing emotion, standing firm, as if she had built a barrier around herself to protect herself. When Alex finishes, she takes a deep breath and explains that forgiveness is not something he can simply ask for and receive. It is something he will have to earn over time. Ely makes it clear that it will not be easy and that she is still deeply hurt. For her, what happened between them has shaken the foundations of her trust and, as much as she wants Noah to have a father present, she fears that Alex may make the same mistake in the future. This dilemma affects Ely. She still feels intense love for Alex, but at the same time, she is torn between the possibility of rebuilding her family and the fear of opening her heart to further disappointment. The experience of abandonment was devastating, and she knows that her priority is to protect her son and herself from any further suffering. However, she recognizes that Alex seems genuinely remorseful, and his presence in Noah's life could be positive. Ely then proposes a deal. Alex can be a part of Noah's life, but he will have to gradually earn her trust again. They will not return to living together immediately. Instead, Alex will have to commit to being a present father and to supporting Ely on an ongoing basis. Ely emphasizes that trust and respect are essential, and he will need to demonstrate, through concrete actions, that he is willing to make amends. This decision leaves Alex relieved, but he understands that the road will be long. He promises to do everything he can to regain Ely's love and respect, promising that he will dedicate himself to being the best father Noah could have. Both leave the conversation with a mix of hope and uncertainty, knowing that reconciliation is possible, but that it will require effort, patience, and a lot of honesty. The months that follow the agreement are marked by a new beginning full of challenges for Alex. He dedicates himself to being present in Noah's life, regularly showing up to spend time with his son and helping Ely whenever necessary. Every visit, every smile from little Noah, and every moment shared with him strengthens Alex's commitment to rebuilding his relationship with Ely. And he realizes that this journey of reconquest is not limited to her, but also to himself. Each small gesture of forgiveness that he achieves strengthens his will to be a better man. For Ely, these months are of observation and resilience. She sees Alex fulfill his responsibilities and, little by little, let some of her barriers fall. Although the traumas are still visible in his gestures, she begins to realize how committed he is to his role as a father and, possibly, to regaining her trust. The encounters with Alex's feelings become less tense, and she notices that Noah has developed a special affection for him, which makes her reflect on the importance of a united family for her son's well-being. One night, as Ely watches Alex play with Noah, She feels a peace she hasn't experienced in a long time. Seeing Alex's sincere smile and the sparkle in Noah's eyes, Ely feels a twinge of hope. She realizes that, although the hurt still exists, Alex's time and commitment are helping to rebuild what was lost. Despite all the difficulties, she understands that this effort represents an opportunity for everyone to overcome. A few weeks later, on a spring afternoon, Alex meets with Ely for a serious talk. He confesses that the time he spent trying to regain her trust has shown him the true value of family and the love he almost lost one day. Alex gets emotional when he says that he wants to go back to being more than just Noah's father. But he understands that this is a decision that depends on her and how they both feel. Ely, in turn, admits that he has proven his commitment and that the wounds of the past are beginning to heal. The two then decide to give their relationship another chance, but this time with more maturity and a renewed understanding of the importance of communication and trust. They agree to seek couples therapy to work together on the issues that still plague them, knowing that, in order to ensure a solid future, they need to completely heal from the mistakes of the past. Noah, unaware of the complexity of his parents' history, continues to grow in an environment increasingly filled with love and understanding. For him, Alex and Ely become an example of how love, even in the midst of adversity, can flourish again. The outcome represents a new stage for the family, showing that trust and unity can be rebuilt when there is true love and a willingness to overcome difficulties. If you like this story, subscribe to the channel and press the like button, so you can see more stories like this. Thanks.